And it wouldn't be a trip to the Lahoma Field Days without a talk about wheat varieties. And for that, we have Dr. Brett Carver here. Now, you've had a lot of interest in Gallagher and Iba this year.
A lot of interest and a lot of activity from the weed improvement team to come up with these two varieties. A lot of work that went into these. Of course, we started with Duster, and that was a 2006 OSU release. We wanted to improve upon Duster, keep that yield potential, maybe raise that yield potential, keep some of those favorable characteristics of Duster, but raise the yield. And so we feel like we had done that with two new varieties called Gallagher and Iba, otherwise called the Sons of Duster, as Dr. Jeff Edwards has coined the term. I really like that. We have other sons coming along, but these would be the first two. We want to be very careful how we utilize the Duster genetics. We want to be very responsible with it. We don't want to wear it out genetically, so to speak, but we want to take advantage of the opportunities. And these are two definite opportunities, but very different varieties in their own right. In fact, we could not come up with a decision on which one. So when you cannot decide which one, you go with both. And so maybe I could just talk a little bit about each one. Iba is more like Duster. It appears like Duster, looks like Duster as a vegetative plant, looks like Duster as the mature plant. We think what we're seeing here, we have the data that shows for the last 3 years, the kernel size on Iba will be about 8 to 10% greater than Duster. We feel like we had the same tiller count with this variety versus Duster. So if you can increase kernel size, you're going to invariably increase yield. Sure enough, we have done that. About 2 to 5 bushel yield advantage, depending, of course, on the environment. You know, that's the trick. You know, did we have the environment this year to see that advantage? I think we did in some cases. We may have actually seen it better with Gallagher. Gallagher, on the other hand, is a little bit even larger kernel. So instead of 8 to 10% larger, now we're talking about a 15% larger kernel. However, I don't think we have quite the tiller counts. We don't have the official numbers yet, but we'd like to get that. With that larger kernel size, we think we can up the yield. Gallagher has actually done a little bit better than Iba inside the state of Oklahoma. As you go outside the state of Oklahoma, where we test with other breeding lines from other breeding programs, Iba has shown the greater reach. In fact, from Texas all the way up to Nebraska. So it really does have that broad adaptation. Gallagher a little bit more narrow adaptation, but maybe a little bit higher yield potential. The other key difference between these two varieties, and our wheat producers really need to keep this in mind, is their maturity. Iba being more like Duster, it also matures like Duster. It reaches first tallest stem, goes through the flowering stage, heading, physiological maturity, harvest maturity, almost identical to Duster. Gallagher, you just move everything up a week, possibly. Yes, Gallagher is going to be more like a Jagger, Fuller, Billings on that timing to first tallest stem. So this is something that our dual purpose wheat producers need to keep in mind. I don't think you can graze Gallagher as long. I think you can graze it just as hard, but not as long as Iba.
And when will these be available to the general public? Well,
the foundation seed is being produced. We have more seed of the Iba. We had to go through another clean out stage of Gallagher to get it more pure, to remove some of the variants that naturally occurred in that variety. But I understand there will be almost an unlimited supply if those bushels actually make it to the bin. Unlimited supply of Iba to our OGI members first. And then Gallagher as well the next year.
Now there's been a lot of talk also about a new process that you guys are doing here.
Yeah, we're like many wheat breeding programs in the Great Plains, we're considering the Clearfield production system as a management system to have better suppression of very problem weeds in Oklahoma, those being feral rye, ryegrass, goat grass, other grasses that are difficult to control with the current chemistries. So thanks to some technology from BASF, they have provided a trait, they also provide the chemical. We have incorporated their trait into varieties. We've already released varieties from Oklahoma State University, those being Oakfield and Centerfield, with this so-called Clearfield trait or Clearfield production system capability, and therefore the weed control capability. The difference now is we're adding an additional gene for herbicide tolerance, so that the producer can now use a hotter chemical, a more effective chemical, to control the real big guns like rye. So we have a couple of varieties actually on show here.
Yeah, let's go take a look. Okay, Brett, we have the Centerfield here.
Yes, we do. This has been a pretty reliable Clearfield wheat variety. It has the one gene for herbicide tolerance. I call it reliable because it has a very good disease resistance package. We've relied on it for disease resistance like soil-borne mosaic, leaf rust, partial resistance at least, stripe rust, partial resistance. Also has Hessian fly resistance.
Really?
In fact, the HF in this is just an indication that we've purified the original center field so that it is now 100% Hessian fly resistant, not the 50 to 60% it was before. But we feel like we can take this variety and go one step farther.
Okay.
Put another gene for herbicide tolerance in, just as other breeding programs have done recently. And these are the 2-gene products, so to speak.
Okay.
So we are now considering 2 advanced lines in the program that would be up for consideration for release by the Oklahoma Agricultural Experiment Station next year.
Okay.
Those are OKO9915C and then the same number but 935C.
935C.
They're
over here.
very, as you can tell, they're very similar. They have very similar backgrounds, pedigrees.
Right.
Basically, if you break it down, we're looking at Entrada, 2174, and Jagger, and then the donor of this 2-gene trait from BASF would have been something related to a soft wheat called Mason.
Okay.
And the Mason actually has given us some pretty good adaptation characteristics. The big difference between these two, we have soil-borne resistance in this one, we don't in that one. However, this has a little bit better drought tolerance,
Right.
a little bit better, a little bit earlier maturity. It may not appear that way here, but this one will mature a little bit later. We'll see. I have high hopes for both of them.
Well, and this could actually be a big plus for wheat producers.
Oh, most certainly. This problem area with rye, of course, is right here in this north central part of Oklahoma. We want to make sure we have a variety that's well adapted to this part, and I think we do.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Brett Carver, thank you so much for the look into the wheat future here at the Oklahoma Field Days. We appreciate it.